Welcome everyone. My name is Stephen Hellman. I'm the Fordham Assistant Director of Military and Veteran Services. We got Paul Underwood here today from the FDNY. He's a prior U.S. Coast Guardsman. We served together back few years back now. He's graduating this May from Columbia with a degree in financial economics. And yeah, he's currently working up in Spanish Harlem at his house, the FDNY. I'll go ahead and pass it on to Paul to give you some info.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Like you said, we served in the Coast Guard together. I've been working with the FDNY since last May. I've been in my current firehouse since September, which is Engine 53 in Spanish Harlem. But basically, just want to go over what the hiring process is like. Tailored towards veterans specifically, but basically the test comes around every 4 years or so, and the last test was administered in 2017. So there's no guarantee of when it's going to be as of now, but if it typically follows their timeline between 4 and 5 years, then you can expect the test to be administered in the fall of 2020 or 2021. That being said, you need to file for the test, meaning you have to you basically just sign up for it on a website called DCAS, which is the city's agency that administers all the city employee testing. So the best way to stay abreast of when these tests are administered is there's a couple ways. You can monitor DCAS website itself, and they put out a listing of all the citywide tests that are administered that following month, and then you can look at that every so often. But I think the most effective way, and probably the easiest way for most people, is to just follow a lot of the social media accounts for the FDNY, either on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. One that I found most effective was Join FDNY on Instagram. It's just that's their handle, is Join FDNY. And they'll put out postings and say the test is coming up, filing for this date, this and that. So that's a good way. The joinfdny.com is another good resource for potential candidates. They put out messages, and they have a lot of information on there that's easily accessible. And then obviously with the virus and the lockdown going on, there's not a lot of these events going on, but prior to the testing, there was what they called mobile academy events that they put out. It's basically just like an engine company and a truck company will go to a park or a playground or something, and they'll set up like just a couple of drills for guys to get their hands on, like a hose line or do a little forcible entry. And I went to those before I actually registered for the test, just to see, meet some of the people in the department, try to kind of network a little bit, which, I thought was going to be helpful for me if it came up to a point where they were trying to decide between candidates, and, you were shown that you had been going to all these different events and networking with people, which I'm not 100% sure goes into their process of selecting who gets sent to the academy. I don't know for sure if it helped or didn't help, but I mean, I just figured I'd do it, just in case it did. But yeah, that's the first thing, is basically you just want to stay in tune with everything that's going on when the testing is going to be administered, because that's the most important thing. Taking the test is, but if you don't do any of those mobile academy events or the block parties or anything like that, you can still get hired as long as you take the test and you score high. Veterans are in a unique position where they're able to receive additional points on the exam that other people don't receive. You get 5 points added to your score if you're a veteran, and then you get an additional 5 points to add to your score if you have a service-connected disability, if you're 10% or higher. So I have 10%, so I got an additional 10 points added to my score. My raw score was like a 95 out of 100, so I got 10 points added to my score, so I ended up with 105. The threshold you basically want to shoot for is getting over 100. That doesn't guarantee you're going to get hired, but you're in a good position to get hired if you score over 100 when your points are added. So if you score a 90 on a raw score, you add the 10 points, then you'll get 100. Or if you don't have a service-connected disability, you get a 95. You add the 5. I know a lot of people that are attending Fordham and live in the city are from here, and that'll help. 2. So if you're a resident of New York City, you get an additional 5 points, meaning that you either, if you graduated from high school in New York City, then you're guaranteed the 5 points. But if you have lived in New York City since 2015, then and filed taxes in the city, then you will be able to claim residency points for that as well. But yeah, so basically, you stay in tune with the social media. You file for the exam in the spring before the test is administered in the fall. That'd be either 2020 or 2021. And then once you file for the exam, you take the exam. Once the exam is you're completed, you won't receive your scores for a while. And then once you receive your score, you'll be given a list number, and then they hire out of that list number. So for instance, I was number 77 out of there's 60 something thousand people that took it. And then they just call you and they say, are you ready to go to the academy? The background investigation starts. They do a physical fitness test, things of that nature. And then they call depending on what list number they get to, depends on how many people actually take the offer or get through the background investigation process. Like for instance, my academy class was 330 people, but they needed to call up to 900. They got up to 900 on the list number, 940 something. So, only about 30 or 40% of the people they actually call actually are able to get to the academy in that class. So just because your list number may not be, 1 through 300 or the top 1,500, whatever it may be, doesn't mean you don't have a good chance of getting the call. And then as far as getting ready for the academy, that's obviously you want to stay on top of your physical fitness. The Pro B manual, which is the manual that you are expected to read and are tested on while you're in the academy, is online. So I read it before I went to the academy because I knew I was going to be tested on it, so I wanted to be prepared. So that's all on the Join FDNY website that I mentioned earlier. That Pro B manual is on there, and if you can read it, if you have time, to read it before you go to the academy, if you know that you're going to be going soon, then I would recommend that. Academy is a lot like boot camp, so guys in the military kind of have a little bit of advantage to know what to expect and to know how to operate. There's a lot of marching. The drill marching is not as how should I say it's not as strict as it was in the military. Drilling is you're still marching everywhere, but there's a guy walking next to you telling you to stay in step and everything like that. But the marching and everything like that helps you, and then obviously just standing still and not talking. But yeah, the physical fitness aspect isn't understated. It's definitely more physically grueling than the Coast Guard Academy. I can't speak for the other boot camps, but stuff you go home at the end of the night and you get weekends off, so it's not as mentally exhausting. You're not constantly in that environment, but physically it's much more physically demanding. And then when you get out of the academy, you get sent to a division. There's 8 divisions. I'm going to show you a map of the divisions and how the city breaks it up. This is a different one. Can you see it? The map?
No, not right now.
All right, one sec. I'm trying to pull up this map. I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, so here's the city. It's broken up into 8 divisions. So this green one right here is Lower Manhattan. That's Division 1. From Midtown up to about Washington Heights is the 3rd division. So that's it's all in Manhattan as well. This light blue division right here is South Bronx and a portion of Manhattan, Washington Heights and Hamilton Heights, I believe. And then the 7th division, the numbers don't make sense. It goes from 1, 3, 6, 7. There was more divisions in the past, and they got rid of some divisions, consolidated them. So it's not like 1 through 8, but there's 8 of them. So then this is the Division 7 right here, which is North Bronx. And then you have Staten Island and a portion of Brooklyn just by the base of the Verrazano Bridge, the Bay Ridge and such, is Division 8. Central Brooklyn's Division 15. The northwest coast of Brooklyn, Barclays Center, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, that's Division 11. This large swath of Queens is Division 14, and then this orange portion of Queens of South Jamaica and JFK and Rockaway is Division 13. So basically, when you're getting out of the academy, you put 3 divisions that you want, but in order. So if you want to stay in Brooklyn, you put 15, 11, and 8, or whichever, however you want to order your preferences. And then you get sent to one of those divisions, most likely. If the manpower is full in that division, you may get sent somewhere else. It's just the needs of the department that'll determine that. But yeah, that's pretty much down the line. I mean, from right now, from when you most likely watch this to when you would go to the academy, if you do end up going that route, then you probably wouldn't remember what I'm telling you now. But it's just some for your knowledge. And then how do I stop the share? Pause share.
There we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, that's basically my experience. I mean, it's a great job. The first year you're in the firehouse, you're a probationary firefighter, so you won't. It's basically like a probationary period, much like what it was in the military. I believe the first 6 months you got out of boot camp, it was like I forget what they called it, but you were basically you could get fired for any little thing that you did wrong. Something similar like that. It's a 14-month period once you actually get to the firehouse, where you have like you're a probationary firefighter. So if you get in trouble, if you get arrested or anything like that, then you have a high likelihood of getting fired. Whereas once you pass your probationary period, you have protection from the union, and you have a better standing within the department, so you're able to enjoy a little bit more protection from the union and things like that. But and as a probationary firefighter, you're expected to be working the whole tour. You're not allowed to sit down. You have to be working constantly on something, whether it's cleaning, checking the rig, maintaining the equipment and the tools. But essentially, that first 12 months is basically your audition period for the guys that have been there. You just prove yourself, you work hard, and then after that 14-month period, the rules are kind of lax. You're still a junior guy, so you're still expected to do all the work that needs to be done around the house. But it's not as intense as it is during that probationary period. But that's where I am right now. So anything beyond that, you'd probably have to speak to someone else. But that's basically what my experience was with the FDNY thus far. And I'm here to help. Obviously, Steve has my contact information. I like, I'm out to help any veteran that wants to get in the fire department. I obviously don't have any determination whether you get hired or not, but I can help people with the process and making sure that they know what to expect and help them with anything that they want. He has my contact information, and I'm willing to speak to anyone offline. They can text me, email me, whatever. And I'm willing to talk to anybody that is willing to. This is the career move they want to make. And there's also one thing I forgot to mention. It's not only, so the open competitive is the ones for civilian. I mean, not civilians, we're all veterans, but for people from the general population pool to get in the fire department, if you don't make it in on the open competitive, or you don't want to wait for that test to open up, you can also apply to be an EMT with the fire department. So, they have their own academy. So I don't know much about the EMT side of the department, but you can work as an EMT for the fire department if you for 2 years, and then you could take a promotional exam to get promoted to firefighter and get into the fire department that way. So I know some guys that don't do well on the open competitive exam, they go into EMS, they work, EMT for 2, 3 years, whatever it takes until the promotional exam comes out. They take a promotional exam, and then they get promoted to firefighter through that route. So it's just options for you if something you really want to do and you score poorly on the open competitive, or you don't want to wait, then that's just an additional option for you. That's pretty much it. I don't know if I missed anything, but.
Yeah, Paul, I understand that's a feeder route for FDNY is EMS.
Right. So the EMS has two programs. They have one program where if you're an EMT that has been working in a private ambulance company for X amount of time, then they'll just send you to their academy, and then they'll send you on an ambulance in the FDNY. And then, like I said, you can take the promotional exam. But they've also come up with a new program where you can go to the EMS academy with no prior EMS experience, get taught there, and then, you get sent out to the field. You have to do a minimum of 2 years in EMS, riding an EMT ambulance before you can take the promotional exam. So, there's a little bit of a commitment there to make sure that you put the time into EMS before you're able to switch to fire.
Got it.
Hey, Paul, how many people go through the EMS route? Like, is there like a good portion of people going that way instead of going, the way that you went?
Yeah, so there is actually. So let's see, out of the 6 guys that are above me in the firehouse that got there before I did, all came from EMS, because I was the first open competitive class. I was since the last test they administered. So all the junior guys that have been to the firehouse before me within the past 2 or 3 years all came from EMS. So I'd say maybe 10-15% of the workforce right now, the junior guys is from EMS, and probably even a larger number than that of the whole department.
Hey, Paul, so I got a question. So what are the stipulations about where you can live once you're in the FDNY? Like what's the radius there?
You have to live in New York State for sure. One of the 5 boroughs is obviously good. And you can live in any of the surrounding counties. I think anywhere in Long Island is good. And then if you want to go north, upstate, you have to live in like Rockland, Westchester, and Orange County. So those 3 counties. It's a pretty wide radius. You can live all the way in Montauk, as far north as like Tuxedo or Pearl River. So you can't live in New Jersey. But you can live anywhere in the 5 boroughs, anywhere in Long Island, and then those northern bordering counties to the Bronx.
Is that the same for the academy?
Yeah, in order to get hired, you have to have a New York address and a driver's license, which I know some native New Yorkers don't have. So you need to get that before you actually start. And the background investigation is very it's not as stringent as most other agencies that I've gone through. It's not as involved as the military was. It's not involved as I was doing the NYPD process, and that was very involved, but it's rather straightforward.
Gotcha. And where's the academy located?
Randall's Island. If you don't know where Randall's Island is, it's right in between Queens and Manhattan, pretty much on 125th Street in Manhattan. And you take a bridge over to Randall's Island, and then the academy's there. And then every Wednesday for like 9 weeks out of the academy, you go to Fort Totten in Bayside, Queens, to do EMS training. So you do, certified. You become a certified first responder in the academy. So it's like all your medical training is done there. But yeah, so like let's say the test is in 2020, right? So that means that my test was in 2017. I didn't go to the academy, and I was at the top of the list until the summer of 2019. So, your primary objective or your primary concern right now is to just making sure that you file for the exam, because a lot of this will be maybe 4 years from now that you would get hired, or the next academy for the open competitive at the top of the list would go. But that being said, the filing could be as early as February. So, if you get anything out of this, it should be that you should need to make sure that you file for that exam. And if you miss that, or you don't want to wait the maybe 3 or 4 years that it would take to do the open competitive route, then you can always go to EMS if you wish. It's a personal decision. And the GI Bill, so I forgot to mention, but the GI Bill thing, you can use the GI Bill for the academy. It's considered schooling. So a lot of veterans that I went through the academy with, they use their GI Bill during the academy, because the pay while you're at the academy is like $1,100-$1,200 of every 2 weeks. So depending on what your monthly expenses are, it may not be enough to cover it. So some guys use their GI Bill for that. I personally wouldn't recommend that, just because you're getting paid by the fire department, and then you're kind of just double dipping with the GI Bill, which is nothing wrong with that, but I think it's kind of a waste of the GI Bill if you're not using it for something that you couldn't pay for without it. Like the academy doesn't cost you money. In fact, it pays you. So using the JAB bill to get paid on top of that, it's just, I mean, you can save it until you're done with the academy. Like what I did was I didn't use it during the academy, but then I went back to school immediately after I got out. After I graduated the academy, I went straight back to my fall semester at Columbia, and then I continued in the spring semester right now. And I was collecting the JAB bill income that way, but I wasn't, just using it just for the money. I was using it to, to finish my degree, or people that already have their degrees, they can save it for a master's. If you already have the bachelor's, you pretty much have everything you would need in the terms of what you need for the fire department. Because in order to make it past the rank of captain, you need to have a bachelor's degree. So if you already have the bachelor's degree and then you're satisfied with that, and then you may just want to use the rest of your entitlement just to exhaust your benefits. But I wouldn't recommend
I think I agree. In the logic there is that the VA cap is $25,000 for the year roughly. So
right.
you'd be throwing away $25,000 even though you'd be collecting monthly housing allowance.
Right.
Right. The tuition cap of $25,000 you'd be lost. It wouldn't be spent.
Right. And you're not getting any additional training out of the entitlement that you're using.
Paul, what does a typical day at the academy look like for a candidate?
So you get there about 5 a.m. around that time. I don't remember. It's dark. So you get there around 5. You walk into the auditorium. Everyone's in the same uniform and all that. It's very similar to boot camp. So you sit in the auditorium for a while, then you march out to they're like lines on a pavement, and you stand in front of information for the drill instructors to come out. They'll yell at you, and you do push-ups or whatever it is. They yell at you for whatever you guys did wrong that night before or that morning, and then you do a workout, whatever, and then you go to do like different evolutions. So there's 6 teams that are basically 6 teams of different instructors that handle a different aspect of firefighting. Like there's a team for ropes, there's a team for ladder operations, there's a team for engine operations. I don't remember all the teams, but yeah, basically you just cycle through each one of those teams throughout your day, and then they'll train you on whatever that topic they're covering that day is. You have a lunch for like an hour that you have to bring from home. They don't have a cafeteria there, so you bring like a packed lunch, you throw it in the refrigerator in the morning. And then when you walk in for lunch, you eat lunch. Then there's PT mixed in there right before lunch, so you do like a workout with their fitness team. A lot of it's like calisthenics. There's like 170 guys that they're training at once. So I don't. Some guys go in there expecting that they're going to doing weight training and stuff like that, but it's not going to be like that. You do a lot of body weight stuff, calisthenics. They do some circuit training, some runs. It's tough for them to work. To work out 170 people at once. So I think they do a good job with what they have. And then. Yeah, then you eat lunch, and then you have 3 more classes with the 3 remaining teams that you didn't see in the morning, and then you go home. And depending on how long they keep you, because they do it like end of the day, they'll put you in formation, and then they dismiss each squad. But if somebody did something stupid that day, they'll keep you there and they'll work you out. Depending on what the guy did. And then your day's over. You get home usually around. Depending on how far your commute is, I live close, so I usually got home around 6 or 7, I think, and then that was it. And then I went back went back at 5 a.m. And then you do that Monday through Friday. You're off for the weekend. Depending on when your academy is, you'll get certain like holidays off. I think I had Memorial Day off and Labor Day. But I think you get federal holidays you get off, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then Saturdays are open for remedial training. So some people think some people are forced to go to remedial training that if you're like failing the hands-on portion of the academy, but it's also open for people that would just want to go to get better. Like me and my buddy, we went like 3 or 4 times just because, we had a high average and we wanted to maintain it. So we just went for extra reps, and we did like extra extra training just to get our hands on the stuff without it. And it's not as a pressure environment. Like the guys aren't yelling at you and stuff if you come on a Saturday. They're more relaxed and just there to help. So I think those are good to take advantage of. If you had the time. Some guys, didn't want to come in on Saturdays because they were there all week and their commute was far, which that's not a problem. They won't. If you don't go to those remedials, if you aren't required to go and you don't go, it's not gonna negatively impact you. But if you do go and you want the extra reps, I think it's beneficial.
Before the fire yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to a few fires. I haven't got if you're in the engine, the thing you want is a first due nozzle job where you're at the front of the hose line. So I haven't gotten one of those yet, but I've been to a few fires since I got there. I've been there since September. We just went at a 4th alarm fire on 70th Street like a few days ago.
Mhm. So one thing I've always been curious of is driving the truck. What's the requirements for that?
Well, that's good. That's down the road. I mean, if you're in the engine, then you probably won't be driving for at least 3 or 4 years after you get to your house. And then if you're in the truck, it's usually a little bit longer than that, maybe 4 to 5. Because there's 2 different companies that you can go to. Is either you get assigned to a ladder company or an engine company. Basically, an engine company is there to put a hose line in place and get water on the fire, and the truck company is there to locate the fire and remove any victims that are trapped. So you get sent to one or the other, and then to whatever division you pick. Then you're able to, if you get assigned to a ladder and you want to work in an engine, or you get assigned to an engine and you want to work in a ladder, you can put a couple years into the whatever company you're assigned to, and you can switch over. And a lot of guys do that. The department's also pretty flexible with like transferring to if you want to transfer. If you get assigned to an area or a house and you want to move to a different area because you move residences, or you get assigned to a slow house and maybe you want to go to a busier house, they're pretty flexible with allowing you to transfer. So that's also a good thing with the department.
Last question for me, but can you speak about the age requirements? I know that's part of the process.
Yeah, so as long as you file for the exam before every military guy or girl is going to get their time of service added to their or subtracted from their age. So, I'm going to assume that most guys that are, in college just serve their 4 years. So they did their 4 years. You can be as old as 33 minus the 4. So that puts you at 29 by the time you file. And there's some ways to even go around that age limit. There was guys that were older than that in the academy. So I think, if you are pushing that, 33, 34, 35, you go through the process and then you address it whenever it comes about. And there seems to be a way to get around it, I think. I don't know personally. I didn't know any of the guys that were past the age requirements, so I don't know. But there was definitely guys that were past the age requirements. So if you're on that threshold, then I would say just to go for it. And then if you get denied, it is what it is. But if you get through, then
There you go, Matt. Subtract those 20 years in, you're golden.
well,
I know I can do that math in my head. I think there ultimately is a age limit.
Right. Well,
even with
it's
the
only up to
military
6, right?
service.
I think it's like up to 4. It's 4 to 6 years. I don't know exactly, but it's up to like a maximum of 5 years that they'll subtract. So if you did 20 years, you can't get 20 out.
Yeah, it's no doubt a young man or girl's game. Certainly, if there's a physical aspect, long term.
Yeah, and the good thing about it though is like the average age of like the probies, like me, the guys that just got hired, was 27. So I was a little older than I thought it was gonna be. I thought like most of the guys that were getting hired were gonna be in their early 20s, but the average age of guys with less than 2 years on the job in the whole department is 27. So
Interesting. Cool. Well, anybody have any burning questions before we let Paul get back to it?
Hey, Paul, so I'm curious, you know, you're certainly continuing your service to the city as a firefighter. Well, what's it been like there with this responding to the COVID situation? How you holding up? How's everybody doing?
We're good. We had obviously an uptick in medical calls for the past, a month or two. And they changed our work schedule around a little bit to limit exposure between the duty sections of guys. We'll swap out, like, you work with, like, the same crew, and then they'll just swap out each day, rather than beforehand. It was, each tour you were working with a random arrangement of people that within the firehouse, but now you're kind of working with the same crew every tour. So they did that to try and limit exposure between guys. If one group got sick, then they wouldn't, infect the other guys. But yeah, I mean, a few guys got sick and they had to get put out for, until they got better. And then, but other than that, we saw like a decrease actually in call volume due to nobody being out on the street, with like motor vehicle accidents were lowered. The amount of fires went down a little bit, and then just random injuries went down, but then the medical calls picked up. And then, so we responded to that. Seems like it's lowering a little bit. I mean, it seems like we had an uptick last week, but we'll see what it's like when I go back to work tomorrow. But everybody's holding up. I mean, we're all we want to get out of the house. Just like, I mean, we're lucky we get to get out of the house, every couple of days and hang out with the buddies at the firehouse. But, we want to be able to enjoy the city just like everybody else.
Thanks.
Makes sense. All right, Paul, well, thanks for coming today and help us out. To reiterate Paul's point, if you want to contact me at Shellman@Fordham.edu, that's SHELLMAN@Fordham.edu. Reach out. I'll shoot you in Paul's direction. He'll accommodate you. And Paul, just keep in mind too, if Fordham ever needs some help in the fire department area, come rushing over.
Yeah,
come save us.
The guys on the west side. I'm on the east side, so unless it's
Oh,
a big
that's
fire,
right. Never mind.
unless it goes to like a multiple alarm, I won't be there. But
We don't plan to burn the house down, so hopefully we won't need you.
Well, Paul, thanks for coming. Thanks for your service on the front lines of our lovely city.
yeah, thanks.
Take care. Thanks everyone for coming.